Have you ever wondered why some people seem to achieve everything they dream of, while others, no matter how hard they try, stay stuck? What if the secret to success and wealth isn't money itself, but the way we think and see the world? There was a young man, ambitious but restless, wandering through the crowded streets of a city that never seemed to sleep. Skyscrapers rose like silent sentinels, their windows glowing with the lives of people chasing their own dreams. He had worked tirelessly for years, juggling jobs, studying late nights, and saving every penny he could, yet every night he felt an emptiness that no paycheck could fill. He felt like he was running on a treadmill, moving fast but getting nowhere, and the more he chased money, the farther away satisfaction seemed. One evening, tired and contemplative, he found himself wandering to an old part of the city, where streets were narrow and the neon glow of modernity faded into warm, uneven lamps, casting long shadows. There, in a small park, under a large, ancient tree, he met the old man. The old man looked ordinary at first glance, but there was something in his posture, the calm confidence in his eyes, and the depth of his presence that made the young man pause. They did not speak immediately. The city's noises, the honking cars, the chatter of pedestrians, the distant wail of sirens seemed to fade as the young man approached. It was as if time itself slowed down in the presence of the old man. He felt a strange mixture of curiosity and unease, realizing instinctively that this encounter was about to change something fundamental in his life. The old man began to share stories, though not in the way most people told them. He spoke about life as if it were a flowing river, filled with currents and whirlpools, calm pools and sudden storms. He spoke of his youth, of failures and successes, and of lessons learned not through books, but through living fully and observing closely. The young man listened intently, feeling the weight and authenticity behind each word. The first lesson the old man offered was about the power of thought. He spoke of the mind as a garden, of every thought as a seed, and of how wealth, happiness, and success began not in the outside world, but in the mind itself. He explained that the young man had been watering weeds of doubt, fear, and comparison, rather than planting seeds of ambition, focus, and confidence. As the night deepened, the old man continued, guiding the young man to see wealth not as numbers on a bank statement, but as clarity of thought, discipline, and intentional action. He explained how many people chase money while ignoring the cultivation of their own minds, and how this imbalance always left them unsatisfied. He shared a story of a friend of his who had lived a luxurious life, surrounded by riches, yet had been miserable because he never invested in his mind, never challenged his fears, and never understood the value of patience, persistence, and learning from failure. The young man began to see the truth. His relentless pursuit of money alone had blinded him to the subtler, far more powerful forms of wealth. The old man guided him further, teaching him about visualization and focus. He described it as painting a picture of one's life with vivid colors, seeing goals clearly in the mind before manifesting them in reality. He recounted the life of a young woman he had known who imagined her future in every detail for years before she finally achieved it. Every morning, she would see herself thriving, and every night she would reflect on the steps she had taken to move closer to that vision. Slowly, her imagination became reality, not by luck, but by clarity of purpose and unwavering focus. The young man realized he had never truly allowed himself to see his life in this way. He had spent his days reacting to circumstances instead of shaping them intentionally. The conversation shifted to discipline and habits. The old man told the young man that talent and knowledge alone were not enough. Success required consistency, the courage to show up every day even when motivation waned, and the patience to trust in small, incremental progress. He explained how small decisions, repeated daily, compound over months and years into results that appear almost magical to those who only measure immediate outcomes. The young man thought of all the mornings he had wasted scrolling through meaningless distractions, the nights he had surrendered to fear, the opportunities lost because he lacked a consistent framework for action. He felt both shame and hope, understanding that change was possible, but it required effort and perseverance. The old man spoke then of risk and fear, of the invisible barriers that humans erect to avoid discomfort. He explained that every wealthy person he had known had faced uncertainty, fear, and doubt, yet they had learned to move forward in spite of it. Calculated risks, he said, were like stepping stones across a river. Hesitant movement could leave one stranded, but bold, mindful action created a path toward opportunity. The young man realized how many opportunities he had ignored because he was afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of leaving the safety of what he already knew. Next, the old man addressed persistence. He told stories of countless individuals who had failed, stumbled, and been rejected repeatedly, yet eventually achieved greatness because they refused to give up. He said life often tested people not to punish them, but to refine their resilience, to measure their commitment to what truly mattered. Each setback, each disappointment was not a signal to stop, but a lesson to learn and a challenge to rise above. The young man reflected on his own setbacks, how many times he had quit too early, given in to discouragement, and let small failures define him. He felt a surge of determination, a new understanding that persistence would be the key to unlocking his potential. The old man spoke then of the importance of learning and self-investment. He told parties who had started with nothing but invested relentlessly in themselves, reading, practicing, observing, learning from mentors, and eventually became extraordinary not because of luck, but because they had deliberately enhanced the most valuable asset they owned, their own mind. The young man began to see the error in thinking that money alone would provide security or happiness. He understood that wealth was not just currency, but a reflection of the mind's clarity, discipline, and courage. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The city around them slept, and the air was thick with the quiet of reflection. The old man spoke finally about gratitude and perspective. He said that no matter how much one achieved, the mind could always find emptiness if it focused only on what it lacked. Happiness, success, and wealth were inseparable from awareness, appreciation, and the conscious decision to act generously and wisely in every situation. The young man felt a lightness he had never known, a sense of clarity, as if a veil had lifted from his mind. He understood that success was not just about accumulation, but about mastery, mastery of thought, habit, action, and perception. By the time the young man left the park, the city felt different. The streets still buzzed with activity, but he walked with a calmness, a quiet strength, and a sense of purpose that had been absent before. He began to implement what he had learned. He organized his day intentionally, replaced fear with action, nurtured his mind with knowledge, and built habits that aligned with his vision. Slowly, steadily, his life began to change. Opportunities he had ignored before became visible, relationships improved, and the money he earned now had meaning because it was a reflection of a mind trained to create value, not simply to consume or hoard. The young man came to understand that wealth was not a number. It was the clarity to make decisions, the courage to take risks, the resilience to persist, and the wisdom to invest in oneself and others. It was the ability to influence life, not be influenced by fear, scarcity, or external pressures. And in this realization, he discovered a freedom and fulfillment far beyond anything his earlier pursuit of money alone had offered. He remembered the old man often, recalling the stories, the lessons, and the quiet authority in his voice. The conversation had been a catalyst, a mirror reflecting his untapped potential. Every day, he applied the 7 rules the old man had imparted: control thoughts, visualize goals, maintain discipline, surround himself with positive influences, take calculated risks, persist through adversity, and invest in himself. Over time, these principles reshaped not only his finances, but his entire approach to life, leaving him richer in experience, satisfaction, and purpose than he had ever imagined. And now, as he looked back on his journey, he realized something profound. The true measure of wealth is not in money, possessions, or status. It is in mastery of the mind, the courage to act, the persistence to endure, and the wisdom to grow continuously. Money comes and goes, but a disciplined, focused, and resilient mind creates value that lasts a lifetime. The lesson is simple. Wealth begins in the mind. Discipline, focus, persistence, and self-investment are the true currencies of success. Master your mind, and the world will follow. If this story inspired you, take the first step today. Subscribe to Life Lessons Library and let every story guide you toward mastering your mind and building the life you deserve.